Good morning. It is Sandra, Kamara, and Kelly coming at you for our discussion on Module 7 and 701. So today we are coming back to have a conversation about any progress or any questions that we may have developed over time on the instruments that we are considering using for our quantitative projects. So some of the questions involve reviewing the instruments, if we had any questions or thoughts or evolution in our thinking about the variables that we're using. If we have any questions about the actual constructs, we can ask one another. So I'm just going to open the floor to see who wants to sort of pick up and start.
I'm happy to start. So I had mentioned last time that I was going to use the Secure Flourishing Index to measure increases in flourishing, and then that I also wanted to use some sort of leadership index, I think, in the quantitative sense. And then so the Secure Flourishing Index, again, I'll just sort of say it like I did last time, which is like, it's a completely validated instrument created by Dr. Tyler Vanderweel. So I don't think I have a lot in terms of like the validity and the reliability piece. I do plan to do some sort of correlation between, kind of the intervention and flourishing. So I'm still, I still need to think through exactly what that's going to look like. But as I've been doing our reading, I definitely see myself doing some correlation there, probably Pearson's correlation. I did that in the last cycle of data. Where I still am unknown is what leadership index, if any, I will use. So I'm still at a place where I need to figure that out. I have been having some conversations with two different universities in town that do leadership development work around what measures they use, and then their willingness to perhaps partner with me on what I'm doing. So I'm hoping something that will develop out of that. And then the final thing I would just say is that I feel like for me, the biggest thing is that I think I've solidly landed on the fact that I'm going to do mixed methods, that I'm going to use the quantitative data as and I'm blanking on what this is called. I'm going to use the quantitative data as the first piece, and then based on sort of the flourishing index results and the leadership results, do some I'll have a survey, but also do some follow-up interviews based on that, because I'd like to interview sort of the exceptions, those people for which there was a significant increase and a significant decrease. So I don't know, that's more than just the quantitative, but I think that's where I am at the moment.
So can I ask a question on that for your quality? So I found a survey this week and it made me very happy, because I think part of my issue was that I thought I was going to do mixed methods, but since my sense of belonging construct is there's such a rich field, such a rich construct, and there are lots of different ways into this conversation, that I was like, oh wait, you can't just pick any measure of sense of belonging, right? So validity question, you want to make sure it's like asking the thing that you want it to be asking about.
Yeah.
So I think I'm like circling, and I figured out I want to talk about sense of belonging in the classroom, not just like writ large, not necessarily to the institution. Will it lead to that? Sure. But I'm saying, like, do you feel more connected to your peers in the classroom?
Yeah.
And so I found one this week, and it made me very happy, because I feel like I could probably use the whole thing. It's like a 20-item instrument, and it's got high validity and high reliability, and it matches everything that we've been studying. But what I didn't understand was, like, I for a long time was like, no, I think I'm just going to do qualitative. And on the qualitative side, I was like, I think I'm going to do a case study, because this is all parallel. This is all happening at the same time, right? So all of this. So my question to you, Kamara, is, when you think about your qualitative side for a second,
yep,
are you looking at over there? Because can any quantitative and any qualitative just go together? Like,
yes. I mean, yes.
yeah.
I
Because
mean,
like you, I was thinking I'll maybe lead with the survey and then just have the qualitative as the backup. not the backup, but like it comes to explain some of the results that you get in your survey?
Correct. So it's to unpack the
Right.
quantitative results.
But you're thinking about doing like interviews and focus groups or,
No, I think what I will do is I will do a qualitative survey, so I have an opportunity to get comments from everybody. So I have qualitative data overall, but then I think I will also do interviews. Now, this is just what I'm thinking at the moment. Also do interviews, and right now I'm thinking about it like on the exceptions, right? So if I have people for which there was a statistically significant increase in flourishing or a statistically significant decrease in flourishing, randomize those people and do some interviews there.
that sounds good. That's cool.
And
Okay.
then my idea would be, because when I did the qualitative survey in my cycle 1 research, I did get a lot of really fantastic comments. So then it enabled me to pull themes out from the whole group. But I was left wondering why certain people had significant increases or decreases. And so that's what I would like to know more about this time.
I love how you are reaching out to other places that and asking them, because my story, which this is going to be a continuation of what I've already said, is sort of like, I guess, in the reverse maybe of both of you, because I started out in my cycle 0 and my cycle 1, um, providing support to a really large program across the nation, hundreds of schools, and wanting to evaluate basically like the effectiveness of like these professional development resources I was creating. And I was already doing a lot of surveys and forms. I was building them myself through Google Forms, using a lot of what we had learned in our classes. We also, like institutionally and through the organization that was providing the grant, did bigger Qualtrics surveys like pre and post. And so like I was used to taking that apart. I had TPAC, the technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge survey tool that I was going to modify. And I was like really dead set on quantitative. And then I shifted into this position now where while I am still providing professional learning support and resources across the nation, it's a much smaller scope in terms of like, I'm doing peer-to-peer professional learning communities, and I'm working with cohorts of educators where my smallest cohort is like around 6 and my largest is about 22. And I have direct contact with these educators so that when I'm still creating surveys like on a daily basis for my own like job, because like I need to know quick check information, like, was this effective? Was this ineffective? But for my research, when I'm looking at something like playful professional learning, where I feel like there's not a lot of precedent, there's not a ton of research out there about what this means. And part of my driving force is really telling teachers stories. And so I've been really drawn to the whole qualitative approach around narrative and focus groups, which was my my focus, which I hated writing that when I was writing. I was like, I wanted to focus on focus groups. I think I was narrowing in on focus groups, but like that was what I honed in on this week. And I have done focus groups in the past, like in my like leading up to developing something where I gathered a bunch with a colleague. We did it together. That's the one thing I don't know if I'll have someone. But so in terms of like, I went back to my module 3, and it's funny like what I actually wrote about for the question on like what were your variables. So like the variables that I put, like just as a guess, like if someone said you have to do quantitative data, it was attendance and interaction, because like I'm curious what their engagement and participation is, but also it's sort of like, am I though? Like I want to know how they feel about it, and does attendance and participation equate to engagement? No, it could, but it could also not. So like, and then I wrote down, the more I explore quantitative measurements for engagement, the dirtier I feel like a marketer trying to sell a product. Like that's how I feel. about it. And I said, I'm really interested in the teachers' voices and stories when it comes to their engagement and social perspective on participating in the professional experience, as well as the community of practice. So like, I guess I'm just struggling to figure out what measure in quantitative, and I get like the whole validity around and the scientific rigor that it seems like we read about, that, you know, well, you don't want your research to be discounted because of this, but I don't know. I'm just not sure if I know where I'm going to go. I will say one of my projects that's coming up that we are starting with a new cohort that's joining another cohort. I'm like, we're focusing on a very specific school, and we're in the stage right now, like with the grant funder, of talking about metrics and like, what are we looking for over this year, right? And when you're talking to the educators and the learning experience designers, the instructional designers, the people who are in it for the teachers and the students, versus the funder with a I'm trying to be careful here not to like say who these people are, but like the people who provide the money and back
Yeah.
a product typically,
Yeah.
of what their objectives are to get out of this sort of project and what our objectives are, it's different. And in terms of metrics, you know, and what is it that you want to measure and how do you show impact, you know, it's different words. But yeah, so we came up with a couple of things. That one of them was like this idea of funnel of engagement. So going in and launching a new program, we want to see, is there awareness, and then it goes to interest, and then it goes to engagement. And so we've kind of developed as a team certain indicators that would show what this funnel looks like, and that's the goal. But like, we haven't even gone into the school yet. We haven't met them. We have to get a baseline. And so that's the other part of it, you know, when you're looking at with emerging technologies and their use of them to produce certain outcomes for historically and systematically excluded youth. So like, that's the work. But like, I'm interested in the educators, you know, and I'm interested in engaging them with these unique learning opportunities, getting them to learn from each other. So anyway, and then someone else brought up another tool called or it's a methodology, I guess. It's called CBAMS. It's like the concerns-based adoptions model. And then I pulled it up, and it was like Shirley Horde. So I think we actually saw it in another one of our classes. But
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm just not really I'm not really there, I don't think, with quantitative. And you know, and I'm still sending out surveys on like a weekly basis for events and things that I do. I just sent one out last week where it was like, what is your level of satisfaction? Because yes, I wanted to see it, but I'm also not publishing a research paper on it. I just needed to know, like, were you happy or were you not happy with what was going on, sort of a thing. But
I think that's the challenge, Kelly, with programmatic, is that, to me, even just as a practitioner, there's always this, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense at all, because I gather the data too, but I think there's always this like trap of how many people showed up, what did they like it or did they not like it, and using that as the sort of indicator of a successful program. And you know, those are just, but those aren't, like, there were a couple of words in what you were saying in terms of like engagement and impact. And to me, those participation, I mean, like, I keep it too, so that I can tell our funder, this many people showed up and this many people said they were, but like, that's not what I'm using to evaluate. Am I going to keep offering this, or is this a worthwhile thing for me and my team to be doing? So I definitely hear what you're saying. And it seems like, at least even for the work that I do, I always, that quality, I just keep coming back to that qualitative of the narrative and the story, you know, like for me, right? Like you said, the educators, how are the faculty resonating with this? Is this making an impact? And even outside of our dissertation, I'm often thinking about things like that in terms of, you know, longitudinal impact too, because I would argue, especially if I'm looking for me at transforming culture, you know, I don't want to just know that, ooh, my flourishing went up, you know, after going through this program. I want to know, how is your flourishing 6 months after going through this intervention or putting these practices into place, which again goes beyond what we're doing here. But I think, like you said, with baseline and setting that stage, I know I just don't want to be one of those people that's just like 17 people attended and they all thought it was, you know, above average or greater, you know,
Like,
so.
it's funny you guys are saying this because I spent a lot of time last week just thinking about the surveys that I want to build. That immediately you can have for Changemaker Week we had 82 events, and it was like there was a survey for each event, just the event. So that's one thing. But now that it's over, I'm like against the clock trying to release something college wide to try to get at what. So holding lots of staff, which is like, what do you think? What did we think was going to happen as a collection of the experience, not just going to one, going. So it's all of the outputs. Did you go? How many times did you do things? Did you like it the whole week? But then it's getting at those constructs, like the bigger, like what was the intention for the whole experience? Like, did you learn anything more about change making at all? Did it bring you closer to wanting to engage more? Did it bring you closer to better understanding it? Are you more likely to want to do something in this space, again? So and they're not that many questions, but but then when you put them down on paper, people are like, I don't know though. Like, that's like so fight. Like, if they say no, I say, if they say no, then they say no, that's the answer. Like, that's what it's telling you. Like, it was fun in the moment, but did it like make me like think about something?
Did it actually change my mental model at all?
Exactly.
Does it result in change behavior?
And we tend to think, I think that's the programming side too, is like I have this thing about the theory and the practice. Like, it's easy for us to sit in these theoretical spaces and talk about what ifs and what shoulds and what coulds. But the actual operationalization of that on the ground, it takes so much people power to try to break, just to have a ripple in culture, which is a big one that I'm also looking at too, Kamara, like you. It's like, how do you change the climate of the campus culture?
Right.
And can a week of experiences like move that needle? Well, those are like really big questions. You just can't throw, just like, oh, let's whip up a little survey. And that's what I see a lot, which is like, let's just whip up a survey. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that is not how this is done. But I think, Kelly, to your point, you're absolutely right to want to do both, right? Because and that's my struggle too. Like, if I don't use like a standard, like a scale, a well-validated, respected scale, it's about sense of belonging, then I feel that the campus leadership, the college leadership isn't going to want to get into, okay, I don't want to talk about how people feel. I want to know, did this happen? But we want to know, because we're sort of like the architects and the mechanics behind the scenes. Yes, okay, like what are the external markers, but then what are the internal drivers? And that's where we shift and we move around how we design product or how we design program. It's like, did you like this? Or did you do this? Is this behavior change? Yes. But we want to know, like, well, why did it change? Because we make false assumptions as to why things changed, when in fact, or why things didn't change. Like, oh, they didn't like it. Well, it wasn't just that they didn't like it. There were a lot of unseen factors that had nothing to do with that made them have to choose either this or this. When you give people those kinds of, like discrete choices, you don't know what's going on in their mind. So I'm stuck with I keep thinking I'm going to go back to mixed methods myself, but I just don't know. Even in mixed methods, we know, like, are they both equal, concurrent? I think we learned this in Mertler's book, like concurrent, or does one happen first and the other one comes to explain, or the other one happens first and the other one comes to explain. Like, so I don't know. So, but I think that we all something like that.
I think the other thing you hit on there, Sandra, which all three of us are sort of saying in different ways, right, is we have funders, we have institutions, and like, I think all three of us really, I mean, our research is firmly anchored in what it is we're doing every day and what it is we're trying to advance professionally. And I mean, I hit the flourishing index anyway, so I was always going to do probably mixed methods, but I'll tell you, in my environment, if I don't have an element of valid and reliable quantitative data in this, people are just going to be, well, isn't she cute over there doing her flourishing stuff, right? I mean, and so I have to be able to get beyond that. And to me, that's just the reality of, scholar practitioner. Like, I actually want to transform medicine, not just do something so that I have, so to me, then I have to sort of look at, okay, what are my research questions? What are we trying to do? And say, I think I have to solidly land in mixed methods if I actually want to do more than just like become EDD and say, look at me, I wrote something, and actually say, is this then leading to transformation?
And
And
that's, I really actually love what you said about that. And I think that for me, where I'm at, that's what I need to figure out, because I'm not actually at a university anymore. I'm at a
Exactly.
nonprofit equity and education
Yeah.
organization. So
So
I need to figure out within my organization, like that's where I should probably start talking to people, because
yeah.
we do research, we publish research, and we change, like we write policy. The people that are in the research where I'm at are making an impact.
Yep.
Is it through quantitative data? I don't know. So like these are the questions that I need to figure out. But that's a really good point that you made there, and that's like it is what it is, and I'm glad we have these classes to guide us through like sort of the way to approach it,
Yeah.
stretch us to think about all the different ways that we should and could, and what it needs to be. Like, I guess it's the can do ability, should do ability,
Yeah.
do ability, right?
Well, because it's interesting, because I was thinking maybe focus groups, and Kelly, I think if you're actually trying to study group dynamics and engagement, focus group could be a really great thing. But I realized in going through that exercise, no, focus group isn't going to work for me, because they're all going to get into group think. And I'm
right.
not going to actually hear about their individual experience, which for me, in this particular research element, is going to be more important. But I agree. I mean, I'm appreciating the opportunity to play around with these different methods, as frustrating as some weeks as it is. I can see the plan.
It sort of addressed groupthink in the reading on focus
Yeah,
groups, because
it
I was
did.
kind of curious about that, because we talk about that too, like where we are, and we try to create scenarios where, especially when we're doing like a learning experience and we have a question, we want them reflecting like individually before we do like the group part. But I also found it interesting where it sort of drilled into, but you will also uncover perspectives that are specifically related to group dynamics that you would not pull up and get to in the individual. So,
Totally
and I actually have the ability within the programs I support to do both. I do one-on-ones with educators where we're individual, and then we do cohort work where we're all together. So I think I can like mix those, like I could mix like interviews and focus groups. And I don't know, maybe something quantitative will be able to come out of that.
We said a lot in this one, and this was like probably one of my favorite conversations. In that it's all, like you said, Kamara, it's all pieces are starting to come together. I don't think answers are there. And I love what you said about, I think Nicole would say, we have to be in context with where we are. And you're right. Like it validates for me what I'm saying, what I feel when I say, like, I've got to try to use a scale, a validated, reliable scale, just to sort of like flag people, like, this isn't a cute project about change making. This is like, the whole purpose of this work is to try to ground it empirically, to show you guys that this could actually make a difference in our performance strategies. But then to become the expert is what I feel. I've always had great respect for the qualitative side. To me, that's like, I go in that direction because I want to know, I want to understand, I want to unpack, I want to explore, I want to make meaning. And so I think that's where the expertise comes. Like the scholar part is like that we know how to run these things, that we know all of these pieces, but the expert piece is to really understand the dynamics of how things become what they become. So it's a really interesting way for us to look at our work real time, as well as trying to apply a lot of the work that we're doing in our classes. So anything else you guys want to say for the good of the order? No? All right.
I appreciate you
Great
both.
conversation.
Conversation. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next time.